And as a quick introduction of Half the Sky, we are a leading career platform that focuses on connecting female job seekers to equal opportunity employers. We offer a women's career network, skills training, and a growing list of career opportunities from our companies that care, as well as expert career advice to help you make that leap in your career. And as an advocate for diversity in the workplace, our mission is to level the playing field for women at work and to help companies build a diverse and robust workforce. All of this to inspire more women to achieve their career aspiration now. So you can check our platform out at halftheskyasia.com, and it's completely free if you sign up. So please check it out. And of course, we are joined by our fantastic partner, our company that cares today, which is none other than IBM. And IBM has had a very long and deep-rooted culture of diversity and inclusion. So they have been prioritizing women in their organization ever since the beginning, from the year 1899, when they hired their first female employee, to all the way to today. Their commitment to celebrating talent of women has been at the very forefront of their business. And of course, as a tech company, they prioritize women in technical leadership roles and develop many programs to advance women in these roles. Their Technical Women's Pipeline program aligns mid-career women with executive coaches and sponsors and offers face-to-face workshops, learning labs, and creates a development roadmap to track progress and readiness for the next milestone in their career path. And now, please allow me to introduce our incredible panel of female leaders for today. So firstly, we're going to have Jeraldyn Lagman. She is a project manager who's based in the Philippines. So Jeraldyn is an SAP techno-functional professional with 15 years of consulting experience in system applications and products and data processing across all key areas, including account delivery management, application management, project implementation, business process analysis, pre-sales with core expertise in SAP modules. Jeraldyn also has had experience in various industries, including oil and gas, consumer goods, and automotive parts. So we also have joining us today Carissa Hughes. So she is the AWS Alliance Lead for Australia and New Zealand at IBM. Having built her career in purely non-technical roles, Carissa has achieved success by being the connector of people and teams in order to demonstrate the power of working in partnership and helping their clients address complex challenges to innovate, grow, and achieve consistent, delightful experiences. She loves being able to remove perceptions and barriers to help people and teams understand what is possible. And finally, we have Charu joining us today, Charu Mahajan. She is a partner at IBM that leads consumer goods, retail, travel, and transport consulting practices in the ASEAN region. She has very deep experience and expertise across a range of consumer and logistics industries. So with over 20 years of Charu's end-to-end strategic consulting experience across the globe, she works with C-suite and corporate boards of Fortune 500 companies to address their most pressing challenges. She also has M&A experience, having been part of several acquisitions in the digital, market entry, and omni-channel space while focusing on emerging markets. She is also part of the Singapore Computer Society and the Singapore Institute of Directors, and she's very passionate about the role of women in leadership and board diversity, and of course, very committed to accelerating the presence of women in STEM. Charu is also founder and owner of a successful online luxury e-commerce startup called Bits and Bobs that brings together curated decor and fine art from all over the world. So welcome, panelists. Great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're just going to go right into it. We're going to go into our fireside chat, and I'll quickly detail what are each of the parts. So this fireside chat is going to have 4 parts. So part 1 will be an introduction to get to know our panel better and what their roles are at IBM. Part 2 will focus on the IT industry and debunking those common myths about being a woman in IT and tech. Part 3 will focus on consulting, discussing the nuances of being a woman in the industry, and of course, debunking some more rumors that we've heard. And finally, in part 4, the panelists will be able to give career switchers the advice and tell us what IBM is doing exactly to assist those potential career switchers who want to move into the organization. So without further ado, let's get started. Are you ready, panelists?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So we're so excited to be joined by such a fantastic panel today. And of course, before anything, the audience and I would love to get to know you more. So please tell us about yourself and your journey at IBM. Charu, you want to go first?
Sure, Bianca. So you've already done a very nice introduction. So thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us. I know it's a little late in the evening, but I hope it'll be a fun session for all of us and we learn from you as much as we'll share with you. So I run the practice for IBM called IBM Garage. It's really the way we accelerate digital transformation for our clients. And we deliver scale at the speed of startups. So we're truly embracing agile and lean startup practices to help clients undertake scalable transformation. I also run our corporate venture capital program where we're investing in companies that have missions similar to ours. And both our missions are really focused on technology growth, which is helping the world become better. And as Bianca said, I also run concurrently a consulting practice for consumer, retail, travel, and transport. And that's really what I've done for the last 20 years. Really, I've had the privilege of working with some of the top Fortune 500 clients globally. I've worked with family-run businesses. I've worked with startups. And I think in this 22 years of consulting, one thing remains true. I'm not a technologist. I did not start my career in technology. I do not hold a degree in technology. And I came from a pure management background. And having spent all my life in management consulting, I did, however, put up my hand for roles where we were starting out on analytics when analytics was not yet a word. I put up my hand for doing roles where technology was front and center. I delivered, a really large SAP project where I could not spell SAP. So in short, my journey with technology has been a spotted one. I've really entered technology and learned on the go. So this is, if there is any one example on the call, and I'm sure Carissa is another one, we represent in a lot of ways people like you who are joining us, who've come from outside the industry, but have found home in this industry. And over the years, we have learned to thrive in this industry, so much so that I started a tech-based startup where I coded my own platform, having learned coding in the in the 4 months I was between jobs. So this is a really exciting time. And, I hope as we go through, you learn a little bit more about us and how we've made it happen in technology. Thanks, Bianca.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charu. Carissa?
Hello, I'm Carissa. I actually started my career as a legal secretary, which didn't last long. So I don't call that a failure, I call it an experiment. And I then moved into telecommunications where I spent more than 20 years. And probably like Charu, I started in sales support and I took every opportunity that came my way. So I was with the organisation for 12 years and I probably changed roles every 18 months. So I went from sales support to direct sales to going to Bendigo to help set up a 300-seat call centre, then moving to Sydney to integrate sales teams from companies we acquired, and then going to wholesale, then channel, and then alliances. So I just took any opportunity I could, and it gave me the most amazing management experience. So my first management role was at 29 years of age, and I started with 10 people, and within 6 months I had 70 people. So it was an amazing learning curve and experience. And then I started at IBM only this year. So I'm only 6 months young into IBM. So it's I'm still at the learning stage and I'm really excited by the opportunity I have. My role is new to IBM, so it's even more exciting because I can make it what I want and I've got amazing people around me. So it's a new journey for me.
Fantastic. So great to have you today, Carissa.
Thank you.
Geraldine?
So yeah, I'm on the other aspect of things. So I'm technical ever since. I started my technical career around 15 years ago. So true to my course, so I was an engineering student, computer engineering student. So I started my career as an IT. I've not just handled technical roles. I've handled also process management as well as leading a team as well as account delivery management. So I've been around. So I've done both technical as well as non-technical roles, and I've also been just in two companies now. So you're relatively very young as well with IBM, so around a year doing a project management role. So I'm currently handling domestic projects as of the moment, but previously I've handled global scale accounts. And with that, I've been around as well, doing all of the possible roles that I can take in my career. So that's why I've gained a lot of a lot of knowledge in that 15 years.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeraldyn. And today's panel is aimed at those who are looking into making that career switch, as I've mentioned and as our panelists have said today, especially into IT and consulting. So in this part two, which we're going to enter now, let's discuss the IT industry. So this is such a broad industry, as you definitely know, covers many areas, many roles, and it can be tricky for one to navigate, especially if they're currently in another industry, they're thinking of breaking into it. So, Carissa, what would you say are some of the transferable skills that switchers from other industries can apply to a career in IT?
Yeah, thanks, Bianca. Look, there's numerous entry points other than pure technical roles in IT, in particular in large organisations like IBM. When I switched from telecommunications to IT, I stepped back from a senior sales leadership role into a direct sales role because I was confident in my sales skills. However, I recognised I had to step back because I had a massive learning curve in front of me to understand the various IT solutions, what I need to position and understand. Therefore, I would recommend finding an entry point that aligns to some of the skills you have already today. In my case, the transferable skills included problem solving, building relationships, strategic planning, collaboration, sales and communication. What I think is exciting right now as we become more digital and focus on the end user experience is roles and therefore entry points are expanding in IT. We need to understand the customer journey and the experience we want them to have, which I think is awesome. What else I would like to say is it's also your personal traits that will also help you switch successfully, such as your curiosity and your passion. If I was going to recommend one skill as to be successful in IT and consulting, which is absolutely transferable, is the ability to build relationships that result in strong internal and external networks that you can draw on anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Carissa. Well said. Charu?
Bianca, I just, before I get into just talking about skills, I just want to talk about the fact that technology is a growth sector. And it's underpinning the economies of almost all countries globally coming up, especially coming out of COVID. Overnight, we've had the acceleration of, companies, governments, individuals, programs onto digital technologies, and COVID was a big accelerator of that. The demand for STEM skills is growing 1.5 to 2 times that of any other sector. And as a partner at IBM and as someone who's actively hiring, I can personally attest to the fact that our demand far, far outweighs the supply in the market. So which basically means that we're always looking out for people who are coming into the tech sector. And we're looking at certain traits, right? And while we're looking at these traits, we've come to a conclusion that there are really 2 buckets of skills that are becoming increasingly important in the tech industry. Now, one of the skills is obviously tech. It's the master of trade, right? It's what you do the best. So those skills will range from becoming the best, we want the best AI data scientists to robotics engineers to quantum engineers, cloud architects, and so on, right? And those are the hot and emerging skills of the future. I specifically want to talk about security, which is where we see a lot of demand. And security as a skill set is also an emerging skill set. It almost did not exist in the kind of demand and shape we wanted it, a few years ago. So it's also a skill set where we're actually seeing people coming in, not from the traditional IT industry. Over half the people who come into cybersecurity are actually coming in from areas outside of the technology industry. They're self-trained and they've been trained on courses which are available to them publicly, or they're exploring cybersecurity early on in school, putting their hands up, or they're coming through their love of video games and hacking. So this is a very nice statistic, which basically goes to show that technology, given how quickly it's changing, will definitely have people, or even have areas of technology that did not exist a couple of years ago. So we're never going to have a trained workforce which has been learning these skills for a longer period of time. So you will see this dynamic emerging. But just to the point of skills which are transferable, and the ones that we're looking at are really this whole area of human-centric skills. And to us, the technology, the transformation that started with digital technologies is going to end with human-centric technologies. And by that, I really mean is that we need technology at the end of the day will have to serve humans and augment their capability. So we're looking for people, A, who are digitally literate. who are data literate, who are flexible and can live in times of change, especially as we saw in COVID, are resilient. They bring critical thinking, but can be also great time managers, people managers, especially as you manage distributed teams, teams sitting at home, teams sitting in the office, right? The ability to manage these teams call for softer skills, which do not always require people to be trained in the tech industry. Critical thinking and creative thinking are going to be two very key skills for us. Technology is really about solving problems creatively. Technology in itself is no longer a critical factor or a constraining factor. What is a factor is how do you get creative with the solution. So those are going to be key factors. Collaboration, the ability to work with each other. We're increasingly seeing that as we form teams, we give preference to two kinds of skill sets. T skills, T-shaped skills. You're very good at something, you go deep in it. But equally, O-shaped skills, your overall development. How do you cross collaborate? Can you understand? Are you good at hearing? Can you listen to your clients before processing that information? Can you work with your team members who may not be present in front of you? So those skills are really, really important for us. And in fact, when we're bringing on people, especially mid-career, and we're looking at their leadership path, we're basically saying the new leadership paradigm is going to dictate that we have people who can fuse traditional skills, which could be in IT or any of the key areas or industries, with strong people skills. And that really is what's going to be very critical for us as we develop a more diverse workforce. And so to those of you who are looking to switch, if any of those skills resonated with you, I'd like for you to find great comfort in the fact that even analysts like Forrester are basically saying that cutting edge technology execs, CEOs of tomorrow's companies, will really be the ones who can work with human-centered technology transformation, not those who are only going to work with technology-centered transformation, right? So Bianca, I wanted to leave you with that.
All right, so thank you so much again, Charu and Carissa. So moving on, there's a myth that within the IT industry, a large majority of the workers are in their early to mid-20s. So we're talking younger group here. And although workers are very skilled, there can be a confidence gap that stops older candidates from applying to roles in IT. So Jeraldyn, what would you say to those mid-career professionals who are thinking of moving into IT but lack of confidence due to their age or having that imposter syndrome, maybe?
I think Charu already covered a lot of those also when she was sharing her experience also. But yeah, moving into IT, it's not about age for me. It's not about age. It's about your drive and your passion to thrive into this industry. So if you believe that you have what it takes to go into the IT industry, being either tech savvy or you're just very interested in how the industry works. So as per the example of Charu, right? It's not just about technology, how it works, and you're very interested in making it grow further. You're very interested to see it grow further. So you're welcome to make the shift. Just to add also, all major IT companies, IBM included, have a diversity and inclusion that was mentioned earlier. So where there's equality and no discrimination when it comes to hiring our talent. So they give equal opportunity without regard to age, gender, disability, and that's just a few. There's a lot more. So I also have worked with a number of mid-career shifters, like from being an accountant for let's say about 10 to 15 years, and then they transition to being an SEP functional consultant, which they are working with me right now. And they are very well established functional consultants now. So for those wanting to make a career shift into IT, give it a shot. You might just be surprised how much opportunity is open for women of all ages and just starting out their career, basically in IT.
Well said, Jeraldyn. Thank you so much. Carissa?
Yeah, hopefully we've all heard and understand that your experience is needed. Our clients value this, IBM value this. Your experience can help our clients make better decisions as well. Find an organisation that enables you to restart at the entry point where you can leverage the skills you feel most confident and gives you the ability to progress when you're ready. As I said before, it's your personal choice to help make the return successful. Therefore, if you have a passion for technology and continuous learning, it's organisations like IBM who have an incredible continuous learning culture that enables you to refresh, maintain skills in our forever changing technology landscape.
Awesome. So great to hear. Thank you, Carissa. So I'll just keep you on the spotlight for a while more. Carissa, I've understood that you built your career in tech in purely non-technical roles, as you say. This can be something that's uplifting for our audience who have maybe limited technical background, but they want to pursue a future in tech. And there's also this very popular rumor that individuals in tech must have extremely technical backgrounds and be very technical people. So could you tell us a bit more about your experience and your role at IBM and how others can potentially take a similar pathway?
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely debunk that one because I'm far from technical. The AWS Alliance role is actually a new role to IBM and ANZ only this year. So I seem to find or get myself in positions where everything starts new, and I love that. I love being part of anything new. I'll tell you a little bit about the role itself because I think it's pretty amazing. It's got so much variety to it. That's why I love it so much, I think, and why I'm still doing it after 3 years. Is first and foremost, as I said, my entry into my entry there was I'm a connector of people. IBM is such a large organisation. I'm still getting grasp of it myself. And I have the opportunity to work across multiple teams, groups, globally, etc. So I'm constantly connecting people internally. A lot of the times people don't realise what other people are doing, and I can connect them to help them get a better outcome for our clients, and also connect them to our AWS Alliance partner as well. I get the opportunity to be part of developing go-to-market strategies for our region that's aligned to our alliance growth pillars. I get to work with our marketing team on client partner events. I get to use my creative side there as well. I get the opportunity to work with our lead client partners and their teams to understand the value of the AWS Alliance. I get the opportunity to identify opportunities where we can better collaborate internally and with our alliance partner to develop repeatable solutions that help solve complex problems, which is one of my favourite things. I get the opportunity to identify also how improving processes, because it's actually quite a new role. When I first came into it, I'm assuming certain things were in place and they weren't. So I had to ensure to find the organisation, find different people in different areas, how can we streamline this process to make engagements easier in the future? And also, of course, I get to work with my alliance partner too. So once again, it's across multiple areas and regions as well there. And I said before, I have a strong sales background, which is from direct enterprise sales, wholesale channel, building and leading sales teams. These roles require me to engage internally and externally across many different role types and levels, including technical, operations, delivery, etc. And back then I did create establishing processes, go-to-market strategies, developing campaigns, and so much more. Due to these experiences, I was able to transfer these various skills that I need in my alliance role today. Because the alliance role is so varied and requires such a broad set of skills, you may have different skills and strength that you can bring to the role. So, for example, I know someone who started in the alliance role has got a strong marketing background, someone who's got a strong vendor management background. So, because my experience is mainly in sales, don't let that stop you. Is these other skills that, because it's so varied, that you can bring to the role, you can always fill that gap by learning as well. So therefore, the path to the alliance role could be slightly different than mine, but because it is so varied.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carissa, for sharing more about your role. And now we're going to move on to the third part, which is more about consulting. So they say that in the consulting industry, there is this glass ceiling for women, wherein they take up just over a third of the industry. However, it's also one of those industries wherein women are known to excel, since generally speaking, they tend to have better communication skills, better people skills. So Geraldine, with your 15 years of consulting experience, how can you describe how consulting has changed and developed over the years to become more inclusive towards women?
I think yeah, my 15 years into IT industry, starting at as a level 1 or a level 2 specialist from my age way back 15 years ago. So I was in the industry for a very long time. So with my 15 years overall IT experience, I saw it evolve actually with just a majority of my team. I was remembering back then we were just around 2 to 3 women in a team of 10, and it transitioned to being to having more like a 4 out of 10 ratio. And I also saw my leaders, the leaders that I've been under, putting a conscious effort into making sure that the ratio is more equal between men and women when hiring. So there's that conscious effort of selecting the CVs that they want an equal team between the two genders. And then I believe this is also because of what I mentioned earlier, also the drive and focus on equality and inclusion. So a lot of the major IT companies are putting into play this equality and inclusion. And I also saw a shift of IT leaders from majority being men, so a lot of men leaders before, and slowly transitioning into more women leaders, myself included as well. It might be because of what was mentioned, that you mentioned, women have better communication, I would say, and people skills. But I also witness on the other side of it, women leaders who are not just focused on the people management, but also on the consulting side of it. So they are solution architects on their areas of expertise. So they're very deeply technical, and they were able to rise up to to the corporate ladder and become a solutions architect on their areas of expertise. And I also can confidently say that I've been given equal opportunities, if not more, to take on both technical and management roles all throughout my career. And so I would say that myself and the rest of the panelists here today are evidence of IT being more inclusive to women. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeraldyn. So let's just dive a little bit deeper and discuss more about the double standards of the industry. So an industry such as consulting, of course, it involves a lot of offering your advice, proposals, your expertise, which means communication is key. And when comparing women to men, they're naturally perceived differently, and there's no difference in the workplace. So we've heard countless stories of women being perceived as bossy or standoffish when they speak directly and with confidence. And on the other hand, men just doing the same thing could be labeled just as they're just doing their job. And so this is a very, very common case, and this could leave women with very little to no room to express themselves. So Charu and Geraldine, based on your experience, would you say that this double standard still exists today? And if so, what do you think could be done about it? Charu?
Yeah, thanks, Bianca. I think, I mean, we could probably start with a show of hands to really answer that question. And, if I were to put up my hand, and I will, to say that if I have been ambitious, I have been called, aggressive, or if I have asked for something, I've been called certain names. There are labels that have been put out because you display a sort of behavior that may or may not be associated with your gender. I think that happens all too often. It is also, as you had stated earlier, pretty common, or rather a commonplace fact, that less than 30% of all management positions today in STEM industries are women. Less than 12% of all leadership, especially C-level leadership positions, are women. And then when you look at the number of people or the pipeline that's coming through our schools and colleges and tertiary education, at least in Singapore as a statistic, 68% of women who study STEM subjects do not. And if you ask yourself as to why that's happening, amongst the various reasons, and that we've talked about and we will talk about, one of the reasons that stands out is the fact that women continue to face unconscious and blatant biases at all levels. And unfortunately, for not always their technical skills or their performance and knowledge that gets challenged, it's their personality, sometimes their intelligence that gets challenged at work, which makes it very personal. And what adds to it, or what gets worse, is if you're a woman of color or if you're a minority, that difference in behavior is even more exacerbated, right? So I don't even need to look for further. There was an interesting a survey carried out by Statista, which is a global survey company, and they asked women a couple of years ago as to how many women in tech face challenges. 90% of the women said they faced challenges in their career throughout their journey in tech. When they went on to ask what were those challenges, and I'm reading this out specifically because I don't, it's a difficult number to recall. 54% of women in tech said they had difficulty being taken seriously. 40% said they had, they faced a gender pay gap between men and women. 31% said that they had no female role models to look forward to for guidance. 30% said that they faced sexism or some sort of sexual forward advances at work. And 25% said that they lacked diversity within their immediate team. So if you add all of that up, I think we're talking 3 or 4 things. Definitely to the work that there are double standards. There are double standards, and women often find themselves in a double bind because they work in a a culture or a workplace which is so similar, all the people are so similar as in men, and they look and say, women often tend to behave sometimes as men because they think that might help them achieve what other men are doing.
Yes.
When they do that, they get labeled. When they behave as themselves, they get labeled. So this concept of a double bind for women is a very important concept for us. We want to be able to give our women the best chance to succeed, being the most authentic selves that they are. But many times in technology, they can't, because the people who they're reporting into, the people whom they work with, they all represent a different gender. It becomes very difficult for them to be able to express who they are. The other thing we often find, when you talk about double standards, is women being talked over. There is a reported preferential treatment to a male narrative over a woman's narrative. Again, how many times in your career can you raise your hands and tell me that you've said something and people have pretended or not heard you, but if your male colleague says the same thing, suddenly it sounds like an idea straight out of Einstein's mouth, right? It happens to all of us. The third thing that happens is, and this happened to me, I always tell this story because it's a powerful one. I was coming back, I was on a flight back, and I was going to the airport with a male colleague of mine. We were both on phone calls. And he turned around and said, "Hey, you're on phone calls all the while and you're going and, get rushing to work. What will your husband think of you? Isn't he sort of just going to get tired of you being on calls?" And I turned around and said, "Mate, you're on the same flight as me. We've spent the last 3 days at work doing the same thing. What will your wife think of you? She's the children. You're the one who's sitting out. So you've really got the gall to ask me that question, right?" So how many times are women asked that question versus men are asked that question? Look, so the question of double standards is real. But I also want to say this, that it's not true for just technology. We see this in many other sectors as well. Probably more so in technology because the industry still tends to be more male dominated, right? Now, there is no one answer for how do we fix it, but unconscious biases can only be attacked and put to rest through continuous education and training. And this is not just any kind of education and training. There is special training, repeated training, training which involves you to role play, for you to sort of go back and forth, assess your own skill sets, which really make you feel whether you're biased or not. The second thing that we feel very strongly about is hire for not or whom you know, hire for whom you need. So one of the things that we have done very carefully is we've rewritten our candidate slates. And if we are putting out job slates and we continue to see that those job slates are occupied only by male-based CVs, we do tend to question our recruiters. And that's really important because it sends a really strong message that we are looking for diversity at the get-go. The third thing we do very carefully is bring women early. So this whole program of changing the nature of the workplace. If you put in more women, the workplace will begin to look and feel different. And what we experience now will probably be very different because, there'll be more like us. Fourth, measure. So all of us, all executives at Accenture are accountable in our scorecards for pushing through the diversity metric. And our previous CEO said very candidly that you cannot be, you can't be whom you expect. People tend to respond to what you inspect. So if you don't make this on, a legitimate ask on people's scorecards, things won't change. So that's something very important. And the last couple of things is this whole concept of upstanders and allies. It's a very important one. At the end of the day, if you hear, if you see, if you're part of a team where something is being said or done to a woman whom you think is not right, you've got to not only stand up, but you've got to report it. And we've obviously got our anonymous helplines. We've got our straight path to HR, no questions asked, where we encourage people to be upstanders and make sure that we are reporting out these things. And the last bit really is also the fact that we want to embrace our differences. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that women and men do have different needs at work. They do behave differently. So when we structure our training, when we structure our employment contracts, when we structure our, path to promotions, we want to make sure that we're addressing those. So for a very simple thing, women like to do more sequential training. Men like to do it by trial and error. So just something as simple as that will account for more belonging at work. And to be very honest, I think this culture cannot only be stopped or only be the responsibility of women to change. most importantly, our allies need to step in. So a lot of this training and unconscious bias calling out needs to happen and be championed by men and or allies, because
Yes.
we can only lean in so much. So I just wanted to sort of emphasize that point, that finding allies at work that call out this behavior and are changing from inside out are going to be very critical to making sure that these double standards don't exist in the future.
Thank you so much, Charu. I love those practical steps, and numbers as well, they don't lie. So those statistics, very,
Right.
very interesting to hear. Geraldine, something you have to add as well?
So yeah, maybe I'm on the 10% of it, from the statistics, because maybe I'm not sure. It's probably the company that I started with, so it really depends. But trying to look back, I did experience one instance. I remember I received a feedback of being bossy from one of my colleague, but at the time I didn't really see it as being related to my gender, because it was never, I never thought all throughout my career that I'm different from my male colleagues. That's how I do it. So I was never limited with the roles and tasks that I can take. To be perfectly honest, I think I was given even more roles relative to my male peers, because I can handle more basically. So women tend to handle more, right, at once. So we tend to multitask. And I was never afraid to speak up in case I have an idea or if I believe something can be done better. So maybe for me, it's more of just your own mindset rather than an actual double standard. So, or maybe it's just that I started with IT industry, and it's very inclusive already of women when I started back 15 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Geraldine. So I also want to hear from you panelists, your experience, having spent so many years in the industry. What is the craziest rumor that you've heard about having a career in IT consulting?
Okay, I wanted to share something I came across actually in a CIO article on women in IT. It was an IT director that was told women cannot compete. And that's really resonated with me. But what I loved about this was Janine's case, it was her response and how she replied to this and didn't let it bother her. So basically, in this particular case, it was a promotion for a board role. And when she was prompted in the article about, what do you mean by women cannot compete and how did that impact you? She basically said, Beach says she offers a strikingly different view of the world of men. I thought that was really interesting. And when she was pushed further, she said, for one more thing, I think most men make their way to the boardroom by competition. They have to best out everybody, she observes. Most women I've seen in tech, we have advanced our way by building coalitions, breaking down silos, building collaboration. And what's unique to women is that we're less about trying to compete. And I think it really resonates to what I was talking about before. Be unique, be yourself. You can be successful by doing it your own way. We don't have to be seen being bullies and be competing aggressively like the men are. So that's what I want to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carissa. Charu?
I've said this many times, and I say this publicly. I often hear that women can't have it all. And I'm a big proponent of the fact that women can. Just maybe not at the same time. I mean, I think the pursuit of a meaningful life or a meaningful career, whether in tech or outside, involves making short-term tactical choices and longer-term strategic ones. If you're able to look at those choices from the perspective of what value they bring to you, what is the opportunity cost of making one choice over the other, and then making sure that the various dimensions of your life on which you're making choices, whether it's a career, whether it's a family, whether it's your social network, whether it's, stuff on the values each of those dimensions are bringing to your life, I honestly feel that that is just a rumor. I really do feel you can have it all, and you have it all is if you look out for allies and make choices, or of both your companies you work for, people you interact with, sometimes even life partners that you choose, that enable you to have those choices. One thing that I've often, the fact that I'm blessed to have a partner whom I can continuously, depend on to do, and he comes from the same industry I do, continuously depend on to do the things that I want to do without being judged or without being put in a box. Similarly, the company I work for allows me the flexibility and or the pace with which I need to be able to make choices. But I am always able to have it all because the choices I've made in the company I've chosen, a life partner I've chosen, or even a circle of friends that I've chosen allow me to do the things I want to without having to constantly feel as though I'm giving up something which, impacts me negatively. So I truly feel that, we have to embrace the fact that we have to come from a position that we can have it all. Obviously, we may not be able to do it at the same time, but the choices we make will enable us to have that. So to me, it's a rumor, and I strongly live for putting it down.
Love it, love it. Thank you so much, Charu.
Very well said. Very well said, Charu.
Yes.
Well, for me, maybe what I'll share is a funny one. So I'm going to make it a bit lighter. Not sure if it's just here in the Philippines, but people tend to think that people in IT can fix any laptop or PC hardware issues. So I've been called or I've been texted once or twice or even more times to asking them to fix their PC or laptop. I for one don't know anything about broken computers or laptops or cell phones. I might be able to troubleshoot some of the software issues, but I don't know a thing about the boards and the chips inside the PC. So just just want to put that to rest.
Yeah, just it shows, like there still very much are, standards that people have in their head about working in tech. It's just,
IT.
yeah, IT and everything, you could fix computers and such, but that's not always how it is. All right, so panelists, I'm very conscious of time now. We'll just move on to the final question I have for you all. So we would love to hear what IBM is doing to support women who want to make that career switch. So are there any programs that you can tell us about that are dedicated to career switchers, especially into tech consulting? Geraldine?
So IBM is giving equal opportunities to both men and women in all of our openings. So it's not just here in the Philippines, also I think globally as well, where everyone is given equal opportunity to apply for an open position. So just try it out. IBM also has a dedicated program here in the Philippines called Women in Tech. So I'm very happy with it. It covers not just fun activities, there are a lot also, but trainings related to how women can succeed in the IT industry. So it's very catered, tailor fit for just women. They also invite women leaders to speak and share their experiences being in the IT industry, similar to what we're doing right now. So it's a perfect example. And they have mentoring programs as well. So it's very useful for career shifters to have a one-on-one support session with one of our women leaders in IBM. And last but not the least, IBM also has a wide range of available classroom and online trainings, which I've utilized in the past year. So I've attended a lot of training so far. So that can help build the skills that you need for the role that you're interested in. So it can equip you with the career shifters into their journey into IBM.
Fantastic. Great to hear about those initiatives and programs, Geraldine. Anything to add, Charu?
I just wanted to let everyone know that the our entire career framework, which is what applies to me, what applies to Carissa, what applies to is based on the fact that we want to be able to have our workforce do different roles in IBM. So we've come up with this framework called the career beehive. And just like the beehive, there are little hives on that framework. And these really are, if you will, sort of main job groups and paths which individuals in IBM can take, whether it's the same job group or a different one. It's not a hierarchical beehive, meaning it doesn't tell you that you've got to go from the bottom to the top. But it's really whatever path. You can go that way. You can go any which way you want, right? And in these beehives, there are descriptions and skill sets and experience levels which dictate where you want to go to, right? So it kind of creates sort of like an ambition roadmap, if you will, for our people looking to come into consulting or even within consulting to look around and move in consulting. And this is the same globally, no matter what part of IBM are you visiting. So in our DNA, there is already that understanding that we want people to do different roles. Some of those roles can be technical, some of those could be managerial, some of those roles can be roles where you have to talk about research and get deep into a particular topic, right? So they can be those roles. The second thing is that we are a big proponent of advocacy, and we really believe that women coming in at different levels in their career journey will have different ways in which they want to interact with us. Younger women want to learn. Younger women are really focused on acquiring new skill sets, being connected to each other, and they have a purpose which is beyond just work. So being able to bring their skill sets to something beyond work. Mid-level women want to be able to grow and build their eminence. They're looking for their next career level. They're looking for growth. The ability to work both, within and outside the organization becomes very critical. So it's really around giving them the right level of mentorship and helping them grow those softer skills, which will become very important in their leadership journey. And then we've got our leadership executive pathway, which really focuses on giving women the right sponsors, the right mentors, and which help them build their eminence, right? In consulting, it's really around the skill sets we have, and therefore being able to communicate those in an articulate manner to the world becomes really important. Our clients value who we are and the skill sets we bring. So that entire program is focused on how do we enable our women to be more eminent? How do we enable our women to communicate more effectively, right? So we do these programs at different levels of their people's career journey. But in addition to that, our pathways to technical leadership helps mid-level technical women advance. There are re-entry programs, especially coming out of COVID, which are targeting women who've not had an employment in the last 12 to 24 months to come back into the workforce, maybe at mid-levels, and acquire some of those skill sets. So really, depending upon what country you are, there are lots of programs which are going on at the same time. We've got over 100 business resource groups focused on diversity and inclusion, which also target women that we want to acquire both technical and non-technical talent.
Wow, it's incredible to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that, Charu and Jeraldyn. It just shows how IBM is, conscious about women, not just as a whole, but, women at different stages of their career, diverse as they come. Thank you for that, panelists. I think now it's time to move on to the Q&A session. So we do have some questions that have been sent through by the audience members during the RSVP stage. And then if anybody has anything to ask, please feel free to put it down on the chat box and we will do our best to answer those questions in the remaining time. So I have a question here for Carissa. For somebody who doesn't come from a technical background but wanted to explore this industry, what would be your advice? I'm aware you already shared a little bit on this, but would you have anything else to add, Carissa?
I think I just reinforce what I said earlier is because there's so many different entry points now, I would just start with where you feel comfortable, where's your current skills today. So go in at your comfort level, because once you get into an organisation like IBM, the world's your oyster. It really is. And because there's so many different programs and communities you be part of, so you get an understanding what's happening with the organisation. So just start with the comfort level, just get in there and it's yours, really.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the advice, Carissa. And another person is sharing a little bit. So they're saying, I have 7 years of experience in career advising and business administration. I haven't been working since February 2020, and I want a career transition in business analysis. This person also completed a master's program in business analytics and wants to take on a challenging role in a good company, but they're not getting opportunities. They're not able to crack any interviews. So what would be your advice for them? What should they do, or for what kind of role should they apply? Charu?
Sure, thank you. So first of all, thanks to whoever wrote this question in. It takes courage to put this out there. I think a couple of things. First of all, it's not easy to look for a role, especially if you've been out of employment for a while. If you and I congratulate this person for having built their skills and upgraded their skill set during the time that they were not. If you're constantly getting into interviews and not getting luck in those interviews, I think you probably want to sort of start reflecting on why is that happening. Maybe take a chance, ask your interviewer, or ask for a follow-up call. And I can tell you, many of us are very happy to do follow-up calls, which say, look, I understand that you weren't possibly able to take me on, but could you give me a few tips, or can I learn from you as to what I could have done better? People always want to share their insights, and therefore that could be a good learning way for you to sort of relook at your CV or relook at what you could have done differently in your interview. I think the second thing I'd really talk about is when you're coming back into employment, you have to start targeting companies that you really, when you talk about a good company, it can't be as generic as a good company. Target what company do you really aspire to get into. Today, you've got enough resources available to you, LinkedIn being one, so many others, where you can actually look at those companies, look at the people who work in those companies who appeal to you, look at their career journeys, look at the topics they talk about, because people talk about topics. They post them on Twitter, they post them on LinkedIn, they post them in so many other places. So look at what people talk about. Develop a point of view so that you can engage with them in a topic on a topic that might be of interest to them. Reach out to them via LinkedIn and introduce yourself and tell them that you follow them or that you're interested in them. You've got to be very targeted once you reach a certain stage and you're looking for employment, and make sure that you're not carrying, and I say this very nicely, desperation is not referable. So make sure that you are communicating the fact that you are of a certain value. What have you done in the past? How have you taken this time where you couldn't be employable but built on your skills, and communicate that value to your potential employer? So I think when you're looking for a new role, how you package your value and articulate it is your number one skill, and ask for feedback. Reach out to people boldly whom you want to work with and get some of their time. So I think you'll just have to keep reaching out. Networking is going to be your number one tool or number one strategy in getting yourself a new role. Sorry, the other thing I just want to end with is look at career sites. Most of the sites and your own platform, for instance, but equally our own website, whether it's an IBM website, has a career portal which talks about all the careers available to you at this point in time.
Hello, Charu.
I think she got disconnected.
No problem, no problem. Maybe then we'll take on another question and then we can come back when she reconnects. So I have another question from the live audience, and it was asking, is a work placement a good way to start in the sector? And does IBM have any of these? Any takers for this question?
I'm probably still a bit too new, unfortunately. Jeraldyn.
Yeah, maybe the person that asked the question, can you maybe elaborate further by work placement?
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, the person who asked is Aritia.
And for which sector is it?
Yeah. Maybe while waiting, we can answer another question. Is LinkedIn a good tool to help raise my profile? I'm aware Charu spoke on this just now. Would you say panelists is a good tool?
LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think I join a lot of groups on LinkedIn and participate in conversations. So I think it's good for that to raise your profile. I think, in commenting different things, joining different communities. So I really do believe, because I've made a lot of good connections, and just
Yeah.
watching people's careers and things like that, and maintaining connection with different people.
Yeah, and I think also, just to add to that, it's also very good that you build the network. It was mentioned already earlier. Build the network where you are, so that you're not just limited to you have that doorway for you to consult back with your old colleagues. Maybe there's an opening in the new company that he or she is in, so that you can have you can get in touch with that person, and maybe they can put in a good word for you also.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. So panelists, just going back to the previous question before we wrap up today. So this audience member was asking, do you know if companies offer work placements for people trying to get into IT if they're not necessarily IT graduates? I
Yeah.
think that's what,
It's
yeah.
facts. I'm happily true
Yeah,
about
let me take that, Bianca.
Sure, Charu.
Sorry, I don't know.
Charu is back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why the connection's timing out, but yeah, this is an. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can, Charu.
Okay. This is an important one for us. This is what we call the pathways to technology. Come to a conclusion that the new age of jobs will no longer be jobs of people who are coming in as trained graduates. Of course, those would be, but the demand is going to far outpace supply. for us to keep up with the demand in technology, we are working directly with tertiary level institutes, polytechnics especially, in different parts of the world, where we are bringing
can you
in
hear me?
these people.
There's an important.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Charu, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
so we're bringing
Yeah,
in
so
people
we're bringing in people direct.
There's an echo.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's-
they will be bringing in people directly into technology right from their tertiary institutes. Now, that basically means that you're coming in with some vocational training, but you're getting training on the job while you're working in a company like an IBM, building your career. And we are calling these roles new collar roles. So if you're in a polytechnic, especially in Singapore, but equally in various parts, because we've rolled out this program to many countries globally, please look out for our PTech program. Look at what polytechnics and institutes enable this program, and you can join companies like ours through this. And you are going to be a really important set of people that's going to form the next generation of our technology-enabled cohorts coming in to lead the company.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charu, for that sharing. It's good news as well, for career switchers, and anybody who wants to get into IBM sometime in the future. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have left for this Q&A session. We hope that we were able to answer all your questions and clear any doubts that you might have had. So of course, thank you to everyone who has joined today, who has raised questions to our speakers. And if you are ready to define your career with IBM, you can find them on their social media. They are IBM on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And of course, you can visit ibm.com/careers to find roles near you and start applying. And don't forget that you're applying, please indicate half the sky as the source. And of course, don't forget that the diversity employers on Half the Sky platform are still hiring, and they're still committed to empowering women to thrive within the organization. So as I mentioned a while ago, they offer flexible working arrangements, equal pay initiatives, return to work policy, and many, many more initiatives for women. And their jobs are listed across our platform, so you can definitely go check that out. We also have a lot of resources to share with you in our platform. And if you sign up on halftheskyasia.com, it's completely free. You will be receiving exclusive event invites like this one, job alerts, thought leadership content, and many more resources. And you can also follow us on social media with the above QR codes on the screen. And to stay tuned for our future events, just check our events page. We will be uploading new information on there. And of course, once again, thank you so much to everybody, our panelists today at IBM, Jeraldyn, Charu, and Carissa. Thank you for being here today and sharing your knowledge with us. And to our audience members, please stay safe, and we hope to see you all in our next event.